A terrible human being. That's what Mick Mulvaney called then presidential candidate Donald Trump during the 2016 election. But now there could be no way Mick Mulvaney still thinks that, because he is now the incoming acting chief of staff for President Trump. He must have changed his mind once Trump was elected, because he's been busy as a director of the White House Office of Management and Budget. So let's dissect the Mulvaney 180. Here's what he said. This was back in 2016.
Yes, I'm supporting Donald Trump. I'm doing so as enthusiastically as I can, given the fact I think he's a terrible human being. But the choice on the other side is just as bad.
That's not the only time he criticized Donald Trump either. Days after the Access Hollywood tape came out, Mulvaney posted on Facebook that Trump is, quote, not a very good person. A spokeswoman for Mulvaney says his comments are old news, and he now both likes and respects the president. And now he's going to be acting chief of staff in the Trump White House. But imagine stating on the record that someone is a terrible human being, or disagreeing with what they stand for, or objecting to their morals, and then willingly working for that person. But when it comes to Donald Trump, a few people, besides Mick Mulvaney, have done exactly that. I'm going to start with Rick Perry. He once offered this blistering, unfiltered attack on Trump.
He offers a barking carnival act that can best be described as Trumpism. A toxic mix of demagoguery and mean-spiritedness and nonsense that will lead the Republican Party to perdition if pursued. Let no one be mistaken. Donald Trump's candidacy is a cancer on conservatism, and it must be clearly diagnosed, excised, and discarded.
A cancer, a barking carnival act. Well, the cancer must have been cured, because Perry now works for Trump as the Secretary of Energy. Remember, he couldn't even remember what the third one was in that debate. It was the Secretary of Energy. Now he runs the place. Lindsey Graham, a then campaign rival of Trump, laid out his take on the future president.
I'm not going to try to get into the mind of Donald Trump, because I don't think there's a whole lot of space there. I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office.
But once Trump won office, Graham became a key Senate ally and a vocal defender of Trump.
What concerns me about the American press is this endless attempt to label the guy as some kind of kook, not fit to be president.
Senator Graham?
I think he's a kook.
I had to do that. And Senator Ted Cruz, he had this to say about Trump when Trump attacked his wife on Twitter, labeled him Lying Ted, and insinuated with absolutely no proof that Cruz's father had something to do with the assassination of JFK.
He's proud of being a serial philanderer, a narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen. This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies.
So tell us how you really feel, Senator Ted Cruz. Fast forward to midterms in 2018, Ted Cruz called in President Trump to campaign for him in Texas. No hard feelings? Someone who once worked for Ted Cruz also made it very clear how she felt about Donald Trump's business practices.
He says he's for the little guy, but he's actually built a lot of his businesses on the backs of the little guy. And he's a lot of little guys through eminent domain or through not paying contractors after you've built something. The little guys have, suffered.
Well, that was Kellyanne Conway. That was in early 2016, but later that same year, she went on to become campaign manager for Donald Trump. Now she is a counselor to the president in the White House. So much for little guys. And then there's the one person who actually spoke out against Trump while working for him and could still be working for him today. Of course, we don't know who that senior administration official is, because they penned an anonymous op-ed in the New York Times claiming the president is unfit for office. They said the root of the problem is the president's amorality. Anyone who works with him knows he is not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision making. This person said the president has nothing guiding him while he makes decisions in the Oval Office. And whoever it is, we may never know. Claims they stay in their job for the good of this country. Maybe some of these people have good reasons to support the president now, or maybe they don't.
I think people will think thrice now when they go into that ballot box and say, look, I've tried to send a message all along through Donald Trump to the establishment, but now I got to get serious about sending somebody to the White House. And do I want somebody who hurls personal insults or who goes and talks about philosophical differences?
Clearly, there's a lot to say about all this. Dan Pfeiffer, Alice Stewart, Tara Setmeyer, we're going to dig into that next. So a lot of top officials in the Trump administration and some of his allies on Capitol Hill did not always have flattering things to say about the president, and they weren't shy about expressing their negative feelings very publicly. Let's discuss now. Dan Pfeiffer is here, Alice Stewart, Tara Setmeyer, good to see you. So Tara and Alice were actually part of a lot of those panels that I played the soundbite. Tara, you were sitting with Kellyanne, and you're also on my show with her a lot as well. You are a Republican. You have stood firm with your characterization of this president. What do you make of all these folks changing their tunes now that they are working for the administration?
I think they're all cowards. Either they were lying then or they're lying now. So I think that they're probably, they've made a decision to sell their souls in order to have access to power. And I find that to be terribly dishonest. And look at what it's created. Look where it has gotten us. It's destroying the Republican Party from the foundation. It's fundamentally changed so many aspects of what we were supposed to believe as conservatives. I mean, if you were an alien that came to this planet right now and saw what Republicans were, you'd be like, what is this? We don't stay, like, these people have completely thrown out almost every principle that we stood on as conservatives.
And you know what they said about him behind the scenes, and they do now, except it's different when the cameras roll. Go on.
Yes, specifically, you know, some folks that we saw in those clips, you know, I've had dinner with them where they've disparaged Donald Trump up and down, left and right, and yet now they're sitting next to him and, you know, some of their biggest proponents. It's despicable. This is why people hate politics, and the level of dishonesty and just the hypocritical nature of it all has disgusted me, and I understand why so many of my other never-Trumpers have decided to leave the Republican Party. I get it, because it's unrecognizable now because of people like this. But somebody has to stand by and hold them accountable, so that's the only reason why I stay.
I want to get for Dan, what do you think? She said it's about Alice, I'm going to let you speak, but Alice is, by the way, not hypocritical. She doesn't always, she's not, and I'll explain why, but Dan, go ahead, tell me what you think.
Yeah, look, I think what Tara's exactly right. What everyone knows is that Republicans and Democrats in Washington actually agree about Trump. They think he's dangerously unfit for the job, has basically a third grader's knowledge of how government works. But for some set of Republicans, Trump is a useful idiot. He is someone that they can use to advance their agenda, whether that is having him just be simply an organism with an opposable thumb to sign tax cuts, someone who can help some of these grifters enrich themselves, to push forward a nationalist agenda and all that. And that's what they're using Trump for something else. Everyone knows, anyone with 2 eyes and 2 ears knows that he should not have this job, but some people can't say it because it serves their means, personal and otherwise, to have him there.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I usually pose that in the form of a question, because if I say the words that you said, people would accuse me of calling the president a name, but I'm not. It's just a figure of speech, a useful idiot. And that has been my feeling all along, and that's why I think there are people who will just go along with it because the agenda is getting done, and he's doing all these crazy things, saying all these crazy things, and the media's reporting about it, but they're getting it done behind our backs, right? Or when the cameras aren't on. So Alice, again, I'm going to say this, and I'll let you say your piece here. You have been honest about saying that you don't always agree with everything the president does. Back in 2016, you appeared on CNN many times. You said the president's actions, his behavior, his conduct unbecoming for someone running for president. You supported him the whole time. You said the same thing then. You say the same thing now. Why support him now, though, when his conduct hasn't improved all that much?
Look, I'll admit I thought he would grow into the office and he would change his tune, but he certainly hasn't. And while he says some terrible things and he does some terrible things, he's not a terrible person. And I think Hillary Clinton's policies were terrible, and that's why I supported Donald Trump over her. Look, I worked really hard, Tara worked really hard for Republicans that would have stepped up and represented our policies and represented the country in a different way. But at the end of the day, what we have is a Republican candidate that is representative of the policies that I support and that I voted for. He has delivered on the Supreme Court. He has delivered on putting immigration in the forefront. While we haven't accomplished much on that front, he has put that forward. He has reduced federal government regulations. He has worked really hard on improving the economy. He has worked hard on issues that I support, and he is making progress. And number one, the Supreme Court is something that was a huge issue for me and many other evangelicals that voted for him, and he is delivering on these promises that he made.
I got to get to another thing before we run out of time. You mentioned the Supreme Court, and this may go there. So real quickly, please, if you will, Dan, on Friday, a federal judge in Texas ruled that the Affordable Care Act was unconstitutional. It's going to be appealed, of course, but the president is crowing about it. What do you think? Should he be?
Well, I mean, the same 5 justices who twice ruled that the Affordable Care Act was constitutional are still on the Supreme Court. Okay. So it's unclear what would have changed. And for Republicans, the idea that the conversation about health care is going to continue into the 2020 election should be very alarming after what happened in the 2018 election, where health care was the issue that delivered the House to the Democrats.
Yeah, I've got 20 seconds left, Tara. So do you think Republicans should really be happy about this ruling and the president as well? Because Democrats just won a whole lot of House seats running on the health care issue.
Yeah, I mean, this ruling really has no teeth, and it'll probably get overturned in appeal. I actually know the judge who ruled on this. I worked with him when he worked for Senator Cornyn on Capitol Hill. But but they're going to use this as a political victory lap just because. So, and just really quick to Alice, you know, we could have had any sane Republican and gotten the same results, if not better. We didn't need Donald Trump to do this. I couldn't let it go because so many people use it as an excuse. With all due respect to my friend Alice, we didn't need Donald Trump to do this. It's not worth it. He did win, though. Those things are not worth it.
I agree, but
what's happening to the country?
He won the primary.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not worth it.
I've got to run. Thank you all. I'll see you next time. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tom.